Ayrton Senna, portanto, oitava vez pole position em 1986. Se fizer a pole position dentro de 2 semanas em Adelaide, no último Grande Prémio de 1986, passará a igualar o recorde. Aqui está, o tempo 1:16:99. Ayrton Senna, o brasileiro que tem ao seu lado o seu compatriota Nelson Piquet, 1:17, com 1:17:51 para Nigel Mansell, é o terceiro tempo. Quarto para Gerhard Berger, 1:17:60. Quinto tempo para Ricardo Patrese, 1:18:28. Sexto para Alan Prost, 1:18:42. Sétimo para Derek Warwick, 1:18:52. Depois Patrick Tambay, 1:18:83. Theo Fabi, 1:18:89. Philippe Alliot, 1:19:25. Keke Rosberg, a fazer a penúltima prova, 1:19:34. Michele Alboreto, 12ª posição, 1:19:38. 13º tempo para René Arnoux, 1:19:62. 14º para Stefan Johansson, 1:19:76. 15º tempo para Alan Jones, 1:20:09. Martin Brundle aparece a seguir com 1:20:19. Johnny Dumfries, 1:20:47. 4 segundos quase de diferença do seu companheiro de equipa. Jonathan Palmer, 1:20:66. Philip Streiff, 1:20:94. Christian Danner, 1:21:06. Thierry Boutsen, 1:21:17. Andrea de Cesaris, pela primeira vez mais rápido que o seu companheiro, 1:22:47. Hugo Rottendacher não participará. Teve um acidente ontem, não se pode consertar o seu carro. Alessandro Nannini, 1:23:45. Piercarlo Ghinzani, 1:24:17. E finalmente Alan Berg, 1:26:57. São 25 os pilotos que irão participar aqui neste maravilhoso autódromo da cidade do México, na penúltima prova do Mundial. Nelson Piquet é um dos grandes favoritos. Aliás, há 3 favoritos, ou 3 pilotos que poderão ainda ganhar o Mundial em 1986. São eles, não Ayrton Senna, que perdeu a sua possibilidade em Portugal, mas sim Nigel Mansell, Nelson Piquet e Alan Prost. Destes 3 sairá o campeão do mundo de 1986. Hoje de manhã, nos treinos de tanque cheio, aliás, não bem tanque cheio, porque não vamos ter problemas de gasolina aqui na cidade do México. Ayrton Senna, que se tem sempre queixado dos problemas de consumo do seu motor Renault, não irá ter problemas de consumo aqui na cidade do México. Quase todos os participantes deste grande prémio irão largar com menos de 195 litros de gasolina, já que para a disputa das 68 voltas, que prefazem um total de 300 km 628, não irão necessitar realmente de toda a capacidade do depósito. É um circuito que foi ligeiramente modificado em relação àquele que já existia. Lembramos que há 16 anos que não se faziam grandes prémios aqui na cidade do México. Esta é a reta da meta que já existia nos tempos mesmo de Jim Clark, de Jackie Stewart, Graham Hill, John Surtees, Richie Ginter, enfim, grandes nomes do automobilismo mundial que estiveram aqui na cidade do México. É uma reta bastante comprida, não vai haver problemas de ultrapassagem. Aliás, muito possivelmente a Ayrton Senna largará com algumas dificuldades, pois o seu lugar na grelha de partida, o seu lugar de pole position não é o melhor na reta da meta, já que a reta da meta se faz do lado esquerdo. Aliás, podem ver que do lado esquerdo da pista é ligeiramente mais escuro que do lado direito. Há mais borracha, há borracha só na parte esquerda da pista, do lado direito não há. A pole position está do lado direito. Aqui, só para uma informação, do lado esquerdo era a pista antiga. Esta pista nova vem para dentro fazendo um estilo de chicane e vindo a apanhar a pista antiga. É uma das 2 modificações principais feitas neste autódromo da cidade do México. Eu dizia que a Ayrton Senna não larga realmente na melhor posição. A melhor posição tem Nelson Piquet, que larga com o segundo tempo. Exatamente porque A Ayrton Senna será obrigado a largar do lado direito, não há mais aquela possibilidade de escolha que havia antigamente. Há anos atrás havia a possibilidade, até uma hora depois da fixação dos resultados oficiais de sábado, do piloto da pole position decidir largar ou do lado esquerdo ou do lado direito, conforme lhe desse mais jeito, ou conforme ele gostasse mais. Isso não existe mais, portanto a pole position largará no lugar que lhe é atribuído pela Comissão Desportiva, ou mesmo pela organização. Normalmente larga do lado da corda da primeira curva do circuito. A primeira curva é do lado direito, portanto ele larga do lado direito também do circuito. Vai ser uma corrida extraordinariamente difícil por vários motivos. O primeiro, 2.200 metros, a altitude da cidade do México, que torna extraordinariamente dificultoso qualquer esforço físico. Depois, o asfalto, extraordinariamente também abrasivo deste circuito, que irá colocar em dificuldades os pilotos na questão de pneus. Também porque há uma temperatura mais ou menos elevada, pensamos que esteja talvez uns 27, 28 graus aqui na cidade do México e, logicamente, esta temperatura irá refletir-se também na própria temperatura dos pneus. Depois também há o problema de 68 voltas. São realmente 300 km que prefazem quase que o mínimo. É ligeiramente acima do mínimo permitido. Como se sabe, os grandes prémios disputam-se normalmente entre 300 km e 320 km. Este grande prémio são 68 voltas de corrida mais a volta da apresentação. As 68 voltas de corrida prefazem, como já disse, pouco mais de 300 km. 300 km, 628 metros. Portanto, vários problemas se vão apresentar a todos os participantes, aos 25 pilotos que irão largar dentro de aproximadamente 10 minutos para este grande prémio. Há realmente uma grande expectativa, até porque se começam a fazer também cálculos, quem poderá ainda ficar na luta pelo título, o que é que acontece se aquele ganhar e o outro ficar atrás. Ora bem, para não começarmos a fazer cálculos de soma pontos, tira pontos, especialmente em relação a Nigel Mansell, que veremos agora, que estamos a ver agora nos nossos ecrãs, o atual líder do Campeonato do Mundo com 70 pontos, mas já com 11 resultados feitos. Portanto, ele obrigatoriamente terá que tirar pontos duas vezes. Ele tem um quinto lugar, 2 pontos, e um quarto lugar, 3 pontos, 5 pontos que, em princípio, Nigel Mansell terá que deitar fora. Aqui está Nigel Mansell, acabou de colocar um colar por debaixo do seu capacete. Lembramos que ele continua ainda a sofrer um pouco das suas vértebras cervicais, especialmente depois do acidente que teve ainda quando era piloto de Fórmula Ford. Jonathan Palmer, que vemos agora ligeiramente ofuscado por esta beldade, aqui está Jonathan Palmer, o médico piloto da equipa de Erich Tsakowski, a Tsakowski alemã, que participará hoje aqui com um carro só. Ricardo Patrese, no seu BMW Brabham, escolheu largar com pneus duros. André de Cesaris, atrás vê-se Hermano Cuoghi, que é o chefe de mecânicos da Minardi, que foi o chefe de mecânicos da Ferrari e encarregue do carro de Niki Lauda no tempo em que o austríaco era piloto da Casa de Maranello. André de Cesaris conseguiu, depois de muito esforço, ser o piloto mais rápido da equipa Minardi. Ele tem sido ligeiramente ofuscado por Alessandro Nannini em todo o ano de 1986. O circuito dos irmãos Roдригес, lembramos, em homenagem a dois extraordinários pilotos que foram Pedro Roдригес, nascido em 1940, Ricardo Roдригес, nascido em 1942. Infelizmente, nenhum deles é vivo. Ricardo Roдригес morreu neste autódromo com 20 anos de idade. Pedro Roдригес morreu com 31 anos de idade em julho de 1971, na cidade de Nuremberg, na Alemanha, quando corria com o Ferrari 512 de Müller. É um circuito bonito, bastante empenhativo. Aqui Martin Brundle, estamos a 7 minutos da largada, começam realmente os últimos preparativos. A balaclava, a máscara protetora uma máscara inífuga que os pilotos colocam debaixo do capacete. Capacete de Martin Brundle com as cores britânicas. Martin Brundle que se apresenta como um dos candidatos ao lugar livre da Benetton para 1987. São 3 os pilotos que eventualmente poderão fazer equipa com Theo Fabi. Thierry Boutsen, esse mesmo Martin Brundle e até mesmo Alessandro Nannini. Não se fala jamais em Stefan Johansson porque se pensa que Stefan seja o substituto de Keke Rosberg na McLaren. Autódromo dos irmãos Rodragues, esses extraordinários pilotos que, lembramos, correram em Le Mans fazendo equipa com Ferrari quando Ricardo tinha 16 anos e Pedro 18 anos. De novo, a grelha de partida. Ayrton Senna, Nelson Piquet, Nigel Mansell, Gerhard Berger, Ricardo Patrese, Alain Prost. Destes, talvez o árbitro...
Goedenavond, dames en heren, autosportliefhebbers en natuurlijk ook jongens en meisjes. Hartelijk welkom bij Europa Television voor een rechtstreeks verslag van de Grand-Pri van Mexico. De 15e in de ronde om het wereldkampioenschap. U ziet hier de startopstelling aan u voorbij gaan. Die nemen wij straks nog even uitgebreid met u door. Het circuit Pedro Roдригес van Mexico, 4.422 meter lang. Met daarin 15 bochten. En er zal een race zijn over 65 ronden. In totaal een afstand van 287 kilometer. De laatste winnaar hier was in 1970 Jackie X in een Ferrari. En overigens een saillant detail is dat hier in 1965 de eerste Honda-overwinning werd behaald met Richie Ginter. Honda dat nu dus, zoals u weet, de motoren levert aan het Williams-team. En het Williams-team heeft Nigel Mansell en Nelson Piquet bovenin in het wereldkampioenschap met respectievelijk 70 en 60 punten. Een belangrijke race dus vandaag, zeker voor deze man. Die moet proberen aansluiting te behouden en misschien zelfs een wereldkampioenschap te behalen. Goed, we nemen die startopstelling met u door, terwijl u kijkt naar wat sfeerbeelden vanaf de grid. Op pole position, en dat is voor de 8e keer dit seizoen en voor de 15e keer in zijn carrière, deze man, Ayrton Senna da Silva. Overigens een record voor Lotus. Het oude record was in handen van Jim Clark, die 14 poles had behaald voor het Lotus-team. Het is voor Lotus een ander record. Men heeft 106 pole positions in totaal behaald. Dus Senna heeft voor een gedenkwaardige dag gezorgd voor dat team. Naast hem, overigens de tijd was 1:16.96 van Senna. Naast hem staat Nelson Piquet met nummer 6. De tweede in de stand om het wereldkampioenschap in de Williams Honda met een tijd van 1:17.279. Op de tweede startrij zien we dan meteen de tweede Williams, die van Nigel Mansell, de leider in het wereldkampioenschap. 1:17.514, dat was zijn tijd. En naast hem staat Gerhard Berger, die nu definitief naar Ferrari gaat, wat is bekendgemaakt. Gerhard Berger had een tijd van 1:17.609. Dat was geen verbetering van zijn tijd van afgelopen vrijdag, waar hij...
Mexico City, the green flag for the pace lap has just been shown. It's 80 degrees here. Beautiful, brilliant sunshine as the cars pull away from this warm-up lap. Let me go through the starting grid for you. Ayrton Senna is on the pole. Alongside him, Nelson Piquet in Brazil. Then the man who's winning the World Championship is Nigel Mansell, third fastest, with Gerhard Berger fourth. Ricardo Patrese is up in fifth with Alain Prost, still a contender in the championship. Could win this race even, is sixth fastest. Derek Warwick is seventh. Patrick Tambay with a Ford engine, American Haas-entered car, is 8th. Theo Fabi is 9th fastest. And Alio is 10th. Then goes Keke Rosberg, Michele Alboreto, Rennie Arnoux, Stefan Johansson, Alan Jones is 15th. Martin Brundle is 16th. Johnny Dumfries, Jonathan Palmer, Philip Streff, Dana, Boutsen, De Cesaret. Rosengatter is not in the race because he had a big accident yesterday and had to withdraw. He's okay, but the car could not start. Nannini, Genzani, and Berg. That is the starting line. Now let's have a look at the World Championship standings with Larry.
Well, Jackie, obviously everybody's been talking about it. Nigel Mansell comes in with a 10-point lead. And to put it in its simplest terms, as we mentioned at the top of the show, if he can finish ahead of Nelson Piquet, his teammate, and Alain Prost, he will win the points championship. To be precise, Piquet is 10 points behind. Prost is 11 points behind. Remember, the first and second positions are worth 9 and 6 points. And then from there on back, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the other factor that's important, Jackie, for our viewers to keep in mind is that Mansell, because of that complicated formula, has to finish 4th or better to get any points at all. Prost has to finish 5th or better to get any points at all.
Well, right now, John Bizignano is down in the pit before they get round here for the start. John, you have something for us.
Just very quickly, Jackie, thank you. On the McLaren car, between warm-up and the race, they had some problem with the fuel cell. They went to fill the car with fuel, and there was a leak in Keke's car. Ferrari is okay. First time they've been okay all weekend long. Williams, perfect. Lotus, perfect. Brabham says the only problem they had is that the caterer did not deliver the sandwiches. The crew is very hungry down here. They're very hungry all weekend, actually. Arrows, they put in higher gears because they're going to be running more boost. Goodyear says that all teams are running C's, except, very important, Mansell has the left rear on a B, and both PK's rears are B. Now, quickly watch. Keke Rosberg is stopped over a slick part of the track for his starting position. There may be a lot of wheel spin there. Back to you, Jackie.
Well, the cars are coming round now. The final corner, it's a 9-degree banking. It's the corner that this racetrack has been named after, actually, because Ricardo Rodraguez got killed on that very corner here in Mexico City.
Jackie, the biggest factor this week, the track is extremely rough. And all of the drivers late yesterday afternoon were talking about being fatigued already after 2 days of practice and qualifying.
Well, of course, keep in mind that it's 7,000 feet in altitude here, so therefore there's a lot less oxygen in the air. The drivers will get tired. The cars are now coming under starters' orders. Keep in mind that the red light will not come on, and you can see at the top right-hand side of your picture, the red light will come on when everybody has come to a stop and is in position. 10 seconds or less after the red light comes on, we will get a green for the start of this Mexican Grand Prix. Ideal conditions. And of course the World Championship very much at stake as the red light is on.
Mansell.
A major mix-up on the starting grid. Nigel Mansell had a major problem. It almost seemed like the engine stalled, and Senna and Piquet come together going into the first corner, but they get through it. Nigel Mansell's way at the back. Now this is going to be an amazing drive for Nigel Mansell as they come through the first chicane. Will they all make it? They've made it.
Patrick Tambay, also, who had started in the top 10, had a very bad first series of corners. This in all is a 2.9-mile course.
From Senna on this very first lap. Of course, he knows he's got to go out for a win in this World Championship, and it opens the championship right up. The fact that Nigel Mansell, the leader going into this race, is now way back in the pack. He's certainly way back, and Patrick Tambay has gone off the road. He's in the gravel, and that, of course, is intended to slow the cars down if they get off the hard surface. Certainly bogged him right down right now. This is coming close to the end of the first lap, and the long right-hand bend on the 9-degree banking, and then they come past the start and finishing line in this very first lap. We'll give you an update on where Nigel Mansell is in the field as he comes round.
A very big disappointment for Tambay. He had qualified in the top 10, had been in there all week long, and not even to finish one lap. He was shooting for a third position finish, if you can believe it. Here is the fastest turn on this course. As Jackie told you, at a 9-degree banking. It's about 470 meters, almost 500 meters around there. And boy, do they sail. And this picture gives you an idea how quickly they come out. And Jackie is looking for Mansell, and here he comes. Jackie, what do you got on him?
18th position I've got. He's in 18th position at the end of the first lap. Now, clearly, his car and performance is capable of getting him through this field. Whether it's capable of getting him up to the leaderboard early enough, that's another matter. With this turbo power, he's got to be very careful with his tires. The rear tire temperatures are certainly got to be something that they've got to look out for. It's really going to be a battle. The man I would be looking for right now, in fact, would be Alain Prost. I think he has a sincere chance to win this Grand Prix. If I had to pick a man to win it, it would be the man you're looking at just going out of your picture right now.
There goes one of the Ferraris. That was Michele. There goes Johnny Dumfries, of course, Ayrton Senna's teammate. Now, this shot is overlooking the first hairpin, or actually the only hairpin on this course, and they lead into a series of S's. This is the first series of S's. You'll see another camera shot right after this. More S corners. There are about actually 6 or 7 turns in this sequence, leading on to what we can best call the backstretch, which is not certainly the longest part of this course. Altogether, it's about 3/4 of a mile, this series of corners. And there is Tombe, a very dejected Patrick Tombe, who came in with a great deal of confidence today, Jackie.
Well, he's certainly out of it right there. He's either been pushed off or has gone off under his own steam. As they come back at the end of the second lap, so the order is Piquet, Senna, Berger, Frost, Alboreto, Alio, Brundle, Patrese, Dumfries, Warwick, Johansson, Arno, Rosberg, Babby, Stress, Palmer, Butson, and then Mansell. It'll be interesting to see what Mansell has done. He's picked up 3 places. He's now up to 15th position on this second lap. Piquet is not getting away from Senna or Berger.
There goes Felipe Alou by. He was the fastest running of the Ligers this weekend. Yes, he out-qualified and has outperformed teammates Benny Arnoux up to this point.
Well, John Bisignano has a little bit of news from us from the pits. John?
Well, you're commenting on the rough weekend for Haas. On the grid, they actually had to push Alan Jones to a push start. Of course, he started from the very rear of the grid, and this time he came around 19th. So watch Alan Jones coming up through the field.
Okay, from John Bisignano on the pit, Jones coming back up through the field also. So Nelson Piquet looking for a win in this Mexican Grand Prix to give his chances in the World Championship the boost that is required to make the Grand Prix of Australia, the final round in this World Championship Series, a real cracker. And of course ESPN will be covering the Australian Grand Prix. Nelson Piquet, the end of the third lap, comes through, and he's at this time going through there at a speed of about 180 miles an hour as he exits that corner.
180 miles an hour, leading on to a 3/4 of a mile long front stretch. There you see Senna spitting out the characteristic sparks, and you can be rest assured that at 3/4 of a mile in length and with a 180 mile per hour start, they rapidly ascend up to about 200 plus, 200 perhaps 10 miles per hour at the end of this long front stretch.
Well, this is the Mexican Grand Prix on ESPN. We'll be right back after this.
Alboreto en Alio. Er worden problemen verwacht met de motoren vanwege de grote hoogte waarop het circuit ligt. Zo'n 7000 voet, ofwel 2100 meter. Er zijn speciale turbo's uit de magazijnen gehaald om dat te ondervangen. Maar dan nog, in deze hitte en met deze ijle lucht verwacht men dat er veel motoren de geest aan zullen geven. Laten we hopen van niet. Want het mooiste is natuurlijk een groot veld tot aan het einde. Zeker behoudt ook Alio daar nog aansluiting. We zien daar Brundle. We zagen Johnny Dumfries. We zagen Stefan Johansson daarachter. Een zeer hobbelig circuit.
Mexico, and we still have Nelson Piquet in the lead, and Ayrton Senna has been put under quite a lot of pressure from behind with the Benetton of Berger, and then Alan Prost putting pressure there as well. And Nigel Mansell has found himself now up into 13th position. He's taking it gradually and slowly, and well he should. This is a long race. There's going to be a lot of attrition. There's been a lot of engine problems during this weekend. There's forecast to be transmission problems because the track itself is very bumpy. Altitude plays a part, and the tire temperatures are the most important element to keep down. It is even suggested that the cars may come in for new tires at 20 laps instead of waiting for half of the distance in this 68-lap race. John Bisignano, you have more for us from the pits.
Jackie, just talking about that 20 lap for the first pit stop, we were talking to Lee Dog of Goodyear, and he's saying they want them to come in early because the tires will last the second half of the race better than the first half of the race. There'll be more rubber down, the temperatures will be more even, so the reason for them coming in early is that they feel they'll get more wear out of those tires during the second half of the event.
Well, tires, as ever, are always a story, and the great battle between Goodyear and Pirelli, of course, goes on, but that will cease after the Australian Grand Prix. Pirelli announced their withdrawal from Grand Prix racing, and there you see our leaderboard. Piquet, Senna, Berger, Prost, Alboreto doing remarkably well, Elio in 6th, and to keep giving you an update, Mansell is still in 13th position.
Jackie, you touched on how demanding of a race is going to be from all corners. This is going to be a tremendously demanding race. Before we arrived here, we knew that the 7,000 feet elevation, as we had Teo Fabi coming into the pit, Teo was running down in 15th position, not performing nearly as well as his teammate, but Teo has a brief stop here, or rather a stop much sooner than what he expected as he rolls into the pit.
Now he's got more trouble than taking the bodywork off of that car, and it's one big panel at the back. It's quite a big job to take that off. I would say if there's one criticism I would have of the Benetton car, it's the number of Zeus fasteners that they have to undo to get the rear end off for any adjustments that may have to be made. It's a complicated piece of bodywork to get off. As, of course, still our leader comes through at the end of this lap. And look at Alain Prost making a move on Berger. I dare say by the end of this straight, yes, Berger's comes in behind Prost. Will he repass him under braking? Alain Prost has taken a position of authority, and Berger is living with it.
Back to the story of how demanding. We started to mention that everybody expected it would be tough on the engines because of the added elevation here. Explained again, and it's worth repeating, the track was so much rougher than anybody anticipated, and you could see it particularly in qualifying when the cars were out in race setup or make that qualifying setup where they were sprung so tight to get the most miles per hour out of the machines. They were bouncing all over the racetrack. The drivers really took a beating. The tires showed a lot of wear and abrasion in practice and qualifying. And the question of fuel might be the best one because there shouldn't really be a question of fuel on the circuit. Jackie, what do you think?
Well, some of the teams are in fact finding that they can run extra boost because of this altitude, and by so doing are going to use a fair load of fuel. The suggestion is at the present time by one or two teams that they will in fact be on the limit fuel-wise. So I don't think we're going to see any cruise on the basis of not having to worry about fuel consumption. Alain Prost putting a little pressure on, opening that gap up from Berger, and now he'll have to work and see how close he can get to Ayrton Senna. Prost is a real threat. It's very interesting to see this time that the Ferrari is as competitive as it is. That's it coming out of the picture right now in 5th position. And incidentally, Nigel Mansell, an update, is up to 11th position right now, gradually going through.
There's Elio coming through, and Martin Brundle was up to 7th. He got a very quick shot of Martin. It's a white car with black and red trim. He'll be the next one behind Elio. Here comes Elio way in the background where the camera went out of angle as Piquet continues to lead this race. But a couple of people having their finest, maybe 3 people having their finest Grand Prix of the season so far this early in the race. 6th running, Philippe Alliot, who crashed in practice, by the way, on Friday. 7th running, Martin Brundle, one of the Tyrrells. And 8th running, Johnny Dumfries.
I think part of that would be put down to the very slow start of Nigel Mansell, the confusion on the starting grid. Several drivers clearly took advantage of that and got further up than they would normally have at this stage in the race. And, of course, they have been... I know the Tyrrells were using, with the Data General cars, a lot of full-tank tests, so the cars are working reasonably well, although Martin Brundle was telling me that he had a lot of understeer. The front end was pushing a great deal.
Jackie, also, aren't the Tyrrells, as well as Dumfries, using a brand new, what they called a C-type Renault engine in this race?
Well, I think I had that myself, but it was interesting that there's been remarkably few engine failures in the Tyrrell teams this weekend. They've had a very good team run this weekend. I went to speak to them, and they had no engine replacement apart from normal service. They had no turbos blow, whereas on the other hand, some of the teams, the Arrows, for example, have lost 5 engines this weekend. And so have Ferrari changed 5 engines, but really what takes the cake was the tag team have changed 7 engines. Well, this Mexican Grand Prix is being led by Nelson Piquet, the man in quest of the World Championship, line second, and there is that Streff being pulling off the racetrack, and one of the Data General cars being pulled off the racetrack here. Clearly an engine problem. We were just stating that they had had a very clean experience of engines this weekend.
Spoke too soon.
We're at the Mexican Grand Prix, and we'll be back.
you.
Bijna 10 ronden verreden. We geven u de volgorde door. 1 Nelson Piquet, zoals hier in beeld gebracht. 2 Ayrton Senna. 3 Alain Prost. 4 Gerhard Berger. 5 Michele Alboreto. 6 Philippe Alliot. 7 Martin Brundle. En 8 Johnny Dumfries. Daar gaat Dumfries en daarachter zit al Nigel Mansell. Mansell die nu ook Dumfries voorbij zal gaan. Ja hoor, daar gaat Nigel Mansell Dumfries voorbij. Mansell die gisteren naar een dokter is geweest vanwege ademhalingsproblemen. Maar ik denk dat iedereen dat heeft daar in die ijle lucht in Mexico. Maar Mansell is natuurlijk bijzonder nerveus. Want voor hem staat alles op het spel dit weekend. De volger zou dan nog steeds moeten zijn Keke Rosberg die eraan moet geloven bij Nigel Mansell. Maar ik zei al, dat zal nog niet zo eenvoudig voor hem worden. Mansell die ontzettend snel gaat op dit moment en zeker de snelste ronde in handen zal hebben. Hoewel dat ons nog niet doorgegeven is vanuit Mexico, zijn we er bijna van overtuigd. En het is goed dat hij nu in beeld gehouden wordt. We kunnen straks het verschil zien tussen hem en Keke Rosberg. Hij heeft nu ruimte om dat gat dicht te gooien naar Rosberg toe.
So, Nigel Mansell finds himself in 10th position, and that's he you are looking at right now. He's getting through traffic. But John Bisignano in the pits, he's got something for us. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Jackie. Just to bring everyone up to date on who's been out. Of course, Conde on that first lap went into the stand. We have Gonzani out with an engine problem. They have pushed Bobby's car into the garage. Again with the engine problem. Of course, his teammate Berger is out there in 4th position. And Street we do not have a report on, but it did look like engine problem on the monitor. Back to you, Jackie.
Well, it certainly looked like an engine had expired and they did a general fill for stress, as you said. Incidentally, he came over here a week beforehand to get altitude training done with the trainer that the French government gave to him for his fitness program. And he came here because of the 7,000-foot elevation here to get acclimatized and to train under that. So sadly, he hasn't been able to use much of it.
PK is just for the lap on Canadian Alan Berg, who is back in the Ozella this weekend. And Jackie, not only was there that training for the drivers, but several of the teams spent the time off between here and Portugal at Paul Ricard, practicing and working on their engine setups because of the higher elevation here.
Yes, well, Ricard itself is not very high, but there is a lot of testing that has to be done as the year goes on. So they were using that as a late season development program. So therefore Ricard is one that's used quite often simply on the basis of guaranteed weather in most cases, pretty good weather. So John Bisignano is back in the pit. He's got something for us. Alboreto is coming into the pit.
Well, as you can see, Alboreto came down the pit lane very, very slowly. This cannot be a routine stop because he just crawled down the pit lane. The engine is shut off, and Alboreto is getting out of the car. A terrible weekend for Ferrari. They threw up all kinds of engines all weekend long, and now Alboreto is out of the Mexican Grand Prix.
Well, that's too bad. They have, in fact, changed 5 engines. They've thrown 4 turbos, my information tells me, although the Ferrari chief told me that all of the engine changes were for no mechanical deficiencies. They were merely for service. Now, I can hardly believe that. Michele Alboreto very displeased with Ferrari this year. Berger is going to Ferrari next year, and of course, so is the designer of the McLaren, John Barnard. So perhaps we can expect a better performance from them in 1987. Let me run down the top 10 for you. Nelson Piquet, Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost is 3rd, Berger is 4th, Alboreto was 5th, so now up to 6th to 5th place comes Alliot. Then 6th place now will be Martin Brundle, then Johansson, then Rosberg, and in 9th place, Nigel Mansell.
Moving up as we watch Alain Prost, just another word about that Ferrari situation. As you mentioned, Jackie, since the last race, Berger has been confirmed. And apparently, Mr. Ferrari is still very upset with Nigel Mansell, that man right there. Nigel is coming into the pits. More on that in a minute.
Well, John, are you in the pits
We
there?
got it. We're right in front of him, just across. It's a very quick pit stop. They're using 3 men on each car, and he's out of here. Spinning all the way out to the pit lane and accelerating down that long straightaway. Jackie, they're coming in very, very early. Jones just made a regular tire stop, too, but this is very early.
Well, it's only 12 laps early. That's hardly possible to consider. He really must have chewed up his tires coming from way back in the field as he was in 18th position to get into 9th position. Clearly must have taken a great deal off of his tire performance. In fact, he's now going very slowly.
Using much too much of the curves. He's obviously paying more attention to the race car, the setup, maybe the tires he has. Nigel Mansell does not look like he's driving a well machine right now. Now he begins to pick up the speed, Jackie. But interesting, the intrigue that's going on inside that team. The battle of words between Nigel Mansell and Nelson Piquet. We will not forget that Ferrari story, but let's keep our eyes on Mansell and see exactly if he's making progress. Now, keep in mind, this is the slowest part of the racetrack, but he doesn't look like he's up to speed yet, Jackie.
No, it certainly doesn't. He looks a little bit ill at ease. Of course, his physical condition this weekend has not been good. He has, as the good saying goes, Montezuma's Levengean. He's been really doing a quick step to the toilet almost after every 5 or 10 laps in practice and qualifying, which must have seeped a lot of strength from him. He said he felt much better this morning. Yesterday he was dreadfully ill with it. Not that that has anything to do with his performance this far in the race, because clearly he's driven a very good and hard race. That tyre stop, however, and now he completes that lap. Now, maybe for more on that, we could get it from John Bisignano.
Jackie, you're talking about the quick step to the men's room. Both Nigel Mansell and the Swedish driver Stefan Johansson were running towards the men's room with only at the 3-minute mark before the start of this race. So obviously they are not in the physical condition that they wish for this Grand Prix. Alvaretto is out with a blown turbo.
Okay, so the cameras continue to record the situation of Mansell, who because of that pit stop has now dropped back into 17th position. So he's got a lot of driving ahead of him, and that would suggest the chances are he will have to make one more tire stop in this race.
At least one more tire stop. We'll also use this picture to put a period on the Ferrari story. Mr. Ferrari is still very upset with Nigel Mansell. It is true that Mansell had signed a piece of paper to go racing for Ferrari next year, and the latest word is that Mr. Ferrari has said that Nigel Mansell will never, ever be offered a ride in a Ferrari again. He feels as though that he was treated improperly by his prospective driver. Nigel, of course, making the decision to go back with this team and stay with Williams.
Well, I would have to say, just as an observation, that Mr. Ferrari in the past has not been completely reliable either with regards to his promises for drivers. I'm one of the people who can vouch for that situation. I respect Mr. Ferrari enormously for what he's achieved in racing. He is truly a living legend, a man who has got recognition around the world for his not only his racing achievements, but for his wonderful motor cars. He is, however, a very difficult man to work for, and the situation that Mansell is having with him now, I'm afraid, is somewhat consistent to the type of politics that are involved in Ferrari's racing program.
Nelson Piquet having no such trouble with politics or race cars right now. You see him moving up to put a lap on Alan Jones. Alan Jones is another one of the drivers who had some optimism toward leading to a possible 6th-place finish here today in Mexico. But right now, Piquet is beginning to move up on him. And Nelson Piquet has led from the very early stages when he got around fellow countryman Ayrton Senna. And again, just to remind you, this is a 2.9-mile course. Right now, they're in the midst of one of the 3 straightaways. The longest straightaway on this course is the front stretch. It's about 3/4 of a mile. Right now, Piquet is leading up toward the hairpin. It looks almost like the boot of Italy, as a matter of fact. And there is either Nannini or De Cesaris. Looks like De Cesaris, Jackie, I think, who apparently has gone off course.
Well, he certainly was offline.
Nannini.
It is Nannini. And incidentally, Prost is getting very close to Senna. That isn't him there. That is Keke Rosberg. But Alain Prost is closing up tightly on Ayrton Senna. Johansson, incidentally, has traveled from 11th position, or with the rather confused grid departure, to 5th position right now. So Stefan Johansson, who of course will have to leave Ferrari at the end of this season because he's been displaced by Berger, and it looks at the moment that he's favourite to go to McLaren. That's the rumours that are travelling around the gasoline alley area at the present time.
Jackie, my favorite rumor of this racing year, maybe of the last 5 racing years, is they may be looking at an American for that other McLaren seat, and he may have been a recent Indianapolis 500-mile raceman. I don't know if we should use his name or not, eh?
Well, I've heard the same rumors that Danny Sullivan is talking to McLaren. That is, of course, nothing privy. That's been discussed, and certainly it would be interesting on a sponsorship basis for an American driver to get into a top Formula One team. And, of course, for Danny, it would be a very nice situation to be in.
KK getting hard on the binders there as he tries to move underneath Alliot.
Which he did.
Yeah, which he did get underneath, and that is for position. Rosberg commandeering, let's see, it must be as high as 5th position. The Olivetti computer scoring has only shown KK in 7th, but it had Alliot in 5th, so that is 6th. So Alliot has dropped back and KK has moved up. All right.
So I think KK's now in 6th position.
KK Rosberg, the man whom I personally felt would win at least 1, maybe 2 Formula Ones this year, has announced his retirement. He's got only 2 more chances to win, this one in Adelaide.
Yes, I rather thought the same as you was. I thought that he would manage to get a win. And there's a big battle going on right there with Senna and Prost. A little bit of carving going up there as they go into the final corner here around this Roдрiges, Ricardo Rodriguez Autodromo in Mexico City for the Grand Prix, and we'll be right back.
Aanval van Alain Prost. Er zijn 3 mogelijkheden, ruime mogelijkheden om dit hier te doen op dit circuit, om in te halen. En vooral natuurlijk op dat lange rechte stuk, waar je die turbo boost wat extra open kunt draaien, maar je moet daar voorzichtig mee zijn, want ze worden al zo zwaar belast. Alain Prost, de intelligente en tactische rijder, die zijn kansen afwacht, die de McLaren met de vingertoppen bestuurt, dit in tegenstelling tot Keke Rosberg. Prost die dus echt kijkt van, ik wacht op een fout van in dit geval Senna, en dan pak ik hem. Alan Jones, de man die in de pit stond, rijdt inmiddels al 2 ronden voor Nelson Piquet en geeft geen centimeter ruimte aan de leider om hem nog een keer te lappen. En dat kan in het voordeel werken van deze 2 en 3 eigenlijk. Senna, Prost en daarachter Berger, om wat dichter weer bij die leider te komen. Daar is hij er voorbij, Nelson Piquet, eindelijk na 2 ronden bij Alan Jones. En nu krijgen die anderen dat probleem die hier aankomen. Die anderen die dichter en dichter bij elkaar kruipen. Snelste ronde voor Keke Rosberg, dat is verrassend. 1:21:61 gemiddelde snelheid van 195 km per uur. En dat is niet eens zo gek als je bedenkt dat er toch nog met vrij volle tanks gereden wordt in het begin van die race. En als je bedenkt dat Rosberg daar toch in de mangel van een aantal andere rijders en vooral achterblijvers zit.
John Bizignano, you're down in the pits. More news. John, are you there? John Bizignano, are you in the pits and can you hear us?
Yes, we can finally hear you. We're having several cars in the pits right now. It's our new who's coming out, spinning the tires and going down the pit lane. Just before that, we had the young British driver, Johnny Dumfries, with Team Lotus in for his first pit stop. Now, everyone down here is set up for pit stops. As I look down the road, we can see McLaren, Ferrari, Williams, Lotus, Olivetti, Brabham. They're all ready to go for pit stops. It's going to be very, very busy. It's a wide pit lane, but still, it's going to be very busy and maybe a little dangerous when they all start coming in.
Okay, so Alan Berg got himself in a little kerfuffle there in one of the corners and was way offline and taking his time to get sorted out.
He's right in front of the leaders too, Jackie.
And Nelson Piquet seems to have lost a lot of his lead to Ayrton Senna. Senna seems to have closed up quite considerably. Alain Prost hasn't allowed him to get away. And that was Berg that they were trying to pass there. Berg is a slower car. The white flag was being shown because he's clearly traveling slower. There's Senna. And there's Alain Prost got through also.
Jackie, just a little bit of speculation about Piquet. Again, we were all talking this morning at breakfast about how physically drained many of the drivers felt. And the comment at that time was, to which I readily agreed, was that whoever takes the lead in the early part of this race would be wise to drive the race in his rearview mirrors and maintain the intervals rather than try and decimate or get completely away from contact in the rest of the field. Because the second half of today's race figures to be a real endurance contest, a real athletic test of these drivers. They're going to have a lot of physical stamina to be able to be sharp all day long.
Well, certainly altitude does play a part. I think mechanical durability will also come into play here. Prost, incidentally, is a very fit young man. He's very light, he's very fit, he's very strong, and of course he doesn't stand very high. He must stand only around about 5'4" tall, but he's very compact. Ayrton Senna, who he's following right now in the GPS with the bright yellow helmet on there, he has never been recognized to be a particularly strong man. Quite a weak man in many ways, and was having trouble in the early part of the season with a right arm that seemed to weaken on him quite consistently. In the winner's podium, you would see him having to nurse it. Nelson Piquet, who's leading this Grand-Prix of Mexico, neither is a very robust-looking man, and he has, in fact, collapsed literally on the winner's podium. Fainted 1 year in Brazil, which of course is much warmer than here, but of course is at sea level. Several of the drivers, yes, will be affected, I think, with fatigue. And the fact that Nigel Mansell, the man we're looking at now on our screen, who has had such with a very famous Mexican illness down here, really, that must have drained strength from him.
Compared to the other three drivers we were just discussing physically, Nigel is the larger. He has the bigger build. He appears to be more sturdy, though. There have been a couple of races this year, one in particular, Canada, I believe, in which he won, and he almost collapsed on the victor's stand. But he seems to have, at least visually, a little more calories with which to work than the other three.
I think the story with him really is that he does drain himself totally. He is a stronger man. He's a fitter man. He goes to great lengths to keep himself in very good condition. But I think he also burns it all up during a race. At the end of the British Grand Prix, he could hardly stand. That wasn't a hot race. It wasn't a particularly long race. But I think he just burns it up. But look at how close this battle is becoming. Piquet, then Prost, and Prost is giving an enormous amount of pressure onto Senna, who's the center of that sandwich. This is going to be interesting.
Jackie, I really believe, as I look at the three of them, Piquet going by Senna and Prost, that at least one of the three of them is probably not showing everything he has. It has to be on their mind, all the various factors. Perhaps one of the more complicated in terms of potential factors we've had in about 4 or 5 races. I'll bet you that one of them is not showing all of his hands.
No, they're definitely driving within the abilities of the tires, first and foremost, and secondly, fuel. So you're not seeing those drivers driving at 10-10, so to speak. They're driving in controlled conditions. Let's run through the top 10 after 20 laps. Nelson Piquet takes the lead. And they're now coming up behind some back margins as I interrupt here. Ayrton Senna, you see on the screen now. I thought he may be under a little pressure from Alan, but Alan's dropped back a little bit there. Let me just go through these top 10 for you. Nelson Piquet and Ayrton Senna first and second. Alain Prost is a good third. Berger hasn't let them get away. He's fourth. Johansson remarkably come up to 5th position from 11th. Keke Rosberg is 6th. Alio is 7th. Brundle is 8th. Warwick now has come onto the leaderboard. He's up there. And Boutsen is 10th.
Jackie, a little statistic that at this point early in a 69-lap race with 22 laps complete, it doesn't mean anything, but it's interesting speculation. If the race were to end right now, Nigel Mansell would retain the lead, 70 points, accumulating no more today. Piquet would move to 1 point. He would have 69, and remember, every one of his points for the rest of the season will count. And Prost will still be in it, but he would be 7 behind. He'd have 63 points, and he would just about have to win at Adelaide on those winning points.
Well, we'll keep you updated on the World Championship point standings as we go through this Grand Prix. The 3 men clearly in contention here. Alain Prost, who's coming from behind in a funny sort of way. He's the underdog. The real favorite, Nigel Mansell, clearly had a problem at the beginning of the race. And then Nelson Piquet with 2 World Championships already behind him, with that little bit of maturity perhaps. was starting with a 10-point deficit on Mansell, but in second place. So really, he's taken the bull by the horn. He's leading this Grand Prix of Mexico. Senna is not letting it go, although Senna is no longer in contention with the World Championship.
Jackie, we mentioned that war of words between the Williams teammates as we continue to watch Senna running second and Prost right behind him in third. How do you assess that? I mean, to sum it up, Nigel Mansell was reported this week as saying, well, my teammate, Nelson Piquet, is a sore loser, and nothing would delight me more than to beat him. Piquet countered with, well, Nelson, or rather Nigel, has been lucky this year. He will be pressured into mistakes this weekend at Mexico, and I will take advantage of them. First of all, you think there was a mistake at the front of the race?
Difficult to say. The car may not have been in gear correctly. It may be that it's semi-stalled on the pickup because the turbo lag can cause a lot of trouble at the starting grid. And I'm surprised actually that there haven't been more very slow starts by the leading group this year, because those turbos are difficult cars to get off the line. So that's one element. I think that could have been put down to a driver error, but without hearing the driver's opinion on it, it would be difficult for me to say. It could jump out of gear. I've known that to happen. So I think that would be my first observation on that. But Nigel is wound up. There is no doubt about that. And when you've won 2 World Championships, it really isn't quite as much pressure to win this third one. I did come to Mexico in 1968, and there was a 3-way tie almost for the World Championship. And I know what the pressure feels like. It isn't good. Nigel's going through it for the first time. The other man, Piquet, knows what it feels like. In the meantime, John Visignano's got something he's got feelings on.
Thank you, Jackie. You were mentioning about exactly what happened to Nigel Mansell on the start. It is very hard to find out exactly what happened until we talked to Nigel, but I was standing just above him on the pit wall. When the light went green, there was absolutely no tire spin whatsoever, and there were very furious movements in the upper shoulder of Nigel. From what I could ascertain, the car was out of gear. He got it in gear. There's everyone behind him. There was pandemonium trying to avoid him. And then once he was in gear, of course, he got off quite quickly. The engine was revving smoothly the whole time. So as near as I could tell, Jackie, it was not either in gear or certainly was not in the proper gear.
Okay, thank you very much. That's what it looks like from up here also. Just to give you an update, Mansell has now climbed his weary ladder back up to 11th position. We're at the Mexican Grand Prix. It's ESPN, and we'll be right back.
Daarvan gaat profiteren. De situatie in beeld nog steeds dat eerste groepje van 4 binnen 5 seconden. En Johansson komt wat dichterbij, ook Rosberg, want die zaten op 17 en 20 seconden achterstand in de 20e ronde. En dit is de situatie na 25 ronden. Dus het betekent dat ook dat ploegje dichterbij komt. 7e rijdt Philippe Alliot, 8e Martin Brundle, 9e Derek Warwick en 10e Riccardo Patrese. De laatste 2 dus met de Brabham BMW. En nog steeds die Johnny Dumfries die ervoor zit bij Nelson Piquet. Johnny Dumfries die op moet stappen aan het einde van het seizoen uit het Lotus-team. Want dan zal de door William Honda aangewezen Japanner plaatsnemen. Door Honda aangewezen Japanner zal plaatsnemen in de tweede Lotus. Daar gaat hij er langs, Nelson Piquet. En natuurlijk meteen die ruimte voor teamgenoot Senna. En ook Alain Prost is er voorbij. Zagen we nog een puntje? Ja, de eerste 3 zijn er langs en maar zeer dicht bij elkaar. De neus van Senna zit, zoals we al vaker zeiden, onder de vleugel van Nelson Piquet. En een spectaculaire fase van de race. En wat zal er een
Huber and John Visignano, it's the Mexican Grand Prix. You may have been having a little volume troubles and interference with our commentary, which unfortunately we do apologize for. We are trying to remedy it, and we hope that we'll be able to bring back the quality that you would expect. This Grand Prix is still being led by the picture that you see right there. Nelson Piquet, Ayrton Senna, and Alain Prost. These 3 drivers driving almost in formation. From time to time, they close up on each other because of back markers and traffic. This corner that they're going round right now is extremely fast. They exit the corner. There's a timing light there that they're exiting at about 182 miles an hour. And that's where there's been a couple of incidents this weekend. There's a bad bump going into that corner. And Keke Rosberg suffered from that little bump and got the stability wrong. And of course lost control. Alio had the same problem, and then Rottengatter had a big accident there yesterday where he solidly came into contact with the wall and totally destroyed his Zaxby's car. An update on Nigel Mansell. The crazy ladder for Mansell, because he was having such a poor start in this race, obviously having the car either out of gear and certainly not getting off the line correctly. He was way back in 18th position in the first lap. He came up, was doing very well, had to come in for tyres, went back down to 17th position, and he's now up to 9th position. The leader in the World Championship with only 2 races left to go, including this one.
Again, this race will go 69 laps. We've completed 26 laps, and none of the leaders has come in for rubber yet, and we kind of anticipated that. Now, there's a very good possibility in regards to pit stop strategy that it might have been part of Williams' strategy to include 2 stops for fresh rubber, figuring that many of the others would go the distance on just 1 set of tires, thereby potentially giving the 2 Williams cars fresher tires for a longer period of time in this race.
Alain Prost was putting his hand up. I think you'll find that Alain Prost may be coming in for tires on the next lap. He was waving to his pit as he passed. I think that will be the indication. In the good old days, when you were about to come into the pits, you raised your hand.
Pre-radio.
Just to let you know, or the pit to know that you were definitely coming in. And as I said at the beginning of this race, Goodyear anticipating that they may be getting their leaders in after 20 laps. Well, the cars have now done more than 27 laps, and they haven't come in. But Lee Goff said definitely they would be before the 30-lap mark. So I think you're going to see these leaders coming in. And, of course, John Bizignano's in the pits waiting for that. Down to John.
Thank you, Jackie. We are waiting for the stops. Everyone, again, is fully prepared to go here. But quickly, Street's problem, his engine problem, was with the turbo. Now, Alan Jones has been in 3 times to the pits, and what happened was on his second pit stop for tires, they switched the front tires left to right, right to left. That means that they were scrubbed in the wrong way. So he had to come back in and have them reversed. He is also having high water temperature problems. That's somewhat of a disastrous mistake for a pit stop and a pit crew to make. Back to you, Jackie.
Well, Alain Prost has still not come into the pits because he has passed the pit lane exit. Let's see if he raises his hand this time. There's something going on there. Did he raise his hand, or am I misreading that?
You are definitely correct. Prost is trying to signal his pit crew about something. He has kind of backed off a little bit from Senna. Obviously nothing going wrong with the car. He continues to be just as competitive as ever. Berger has moved in a little bit on the 2 of them, although Gerhardt probably running a pretty good race. He's been parts there, and as you can see, none of them have lost sight of the leader. Now, Jackie, just to also put in perspective this race, the practice times from this morning, which, as we have talked about many times, are often indicative of what people can do. That man right there in the Benetton car, the green Benetton colors, was the fastest driver in practice this morning at almost 123 miles per hour. Alain Prost was second, so it's not so surprising to see him up there. Ayrton Senna was 3rd quickest. Not so surprising to see him up there. Ironically enough, the 4th fastest this morning was Stefan Johansson, who started way down in 14th position, and the 5th fastest is Nigel Mansell.
Well, I think the big thing is going to be the question of rubber. And the Williams Honda is using more rubber than the car of Prost or Senna. Keep in mind that Berger is, in fact, on Pirellis. Now, there, Prost is going into the pits. There is Prost going into the pits, so John Bizignano will be down in the pit. John, perhaps you can call us through this pit stop. Down to you.
Thank you. We can see him coming through this very slow chicane they have. They chicane at the end of the pit straight to slow the cars down, but actually accelerate on the brakes. Up to the McLaren people. He's pulling on them. He's telling them to come right on into the brakes, Up goes the cars. 3 people again on each corner. 1 tire going right out into the pit lane. He's running after it to make sure that on acceleration that the car, it's a little bit slow on getting out, but it looks like somewhat of a fast pit stop, and he was really accelerating up the pit lane. What was the time on that, Jackie?
It was an 11-second pit stop, which is not the fastest in the world, but neither is it the slowest. It was masterminded as usual by Ron Dennis, who of course is the man in control of McLaren International. And this is a beautifully organized team. Prost drives for a very good organization, and Ron Dennis, of course, was a mechanic himself, knows the nuts and bolts of the business and runs a very tight ship. It's Prost now left to try and make up lost ground. You can expect, of course, to see Nelson Piquet coming in for tires, as you will also expect to see Ayrton Senna. It is interesting that, of course, these three leading drivers historically have been well recognized for their smoothness. And by driving in such a smooth fashion, you do not burn up or get the tire temperatures up quite as high as a more erratic driver. You saw Prost suddenly move that steering wheel back and forward. That was to try and induce a little bit of understeer, to scrub the front tires, to take the top coldness off them, and to try and bring the tire in. Incidentally, Ayrton Senna has now done the fastest lap at 1 minute 20.595, which is a new lap record for this newly constructed racetrack. And look at how close Senna is to Piquet.
Every time this year, talking about brand new track records, with the exception of one race, I don't know if it was Hockenheim or what, Jackie, but we've had a brand new qualifying record, a brand new race record, and a brand new fastest lap of the race record. So 1986 has certainly been the year of speed. Let's talk a little bit about the strategy that the first three might be employing. Now, Alain Prost, if you go back historically, you think, well, that's probably it. He is probably planning on the one pit stop. Traditionally, he is so very outstanding in nursing a car around for the final half, final two-thirds of a race. Now, with the distance that both Piquet and Senna are getting out of this first green flag, and here comes Piquet coming in, it figures they will only have one pit stop. John Bizignano down in the pits and will be on top of Nelson Piquet's stop.
Thank you. We can see him again coming very slowly through that chicane, but he will actually accelerate up. Should mention that Boutsen in the Arrows cars also had a pit stop. My Lord, he's accelerating up there on the brakes. He's almost locked up. He has locked up all the fronts and the rears. Up it goes on the jacks. You can see him with say brakes on, brakes on. He has to hold the brakes as they undo the tire. He's spinning the rear. Still there's a problem, but he is out of there. My gosh, one of the mechanics almost had his hand under that left rear wheel trying to grab more. Not or bolt was right behind him. He has Keke Rosberg and Marlboro McLaren going right back up there. Everyone clears out of the way with Ferrari. It's a very busy pit lane. They are looking down to see if the Ferrari's coming right in. Off go the tires. Right rear, front rear, left rear, a little bit of a problem. Keke's spinning it. They're saying, put on the brake, Keke. Brakes on. We can't get it tight. They put on the brake. There is a problem on that left rear. These are agonizing seconds for crew, management, and driver. Keke Rosberg's got to be going absolutely crazy. Almost 2 Grand Prix left in his career. The car's down, and he's out. But I'll tell you, that left rear crew, they were not happy. When that car went out of here, they were looking at each other and at the wheel. We don't know what the problem was. We'll try and find out. Alan Jones very slowly coming up the pit lane for the 4th time.
Well, that was a 24-second pit stop for Keke Rosberg, but the man really in focus in this race was an 8.31-second pit stop for Nelson Piquet. So the Piquet pit stop went absolutely to plan, could not have been better regimented by this Williams team, and of course that will pay dividends for him. Ayrton Senna has yet to come into the pits, so we can expect fireworks in the pits for him. He's under pressure, but he is leading the Grand Prix of Mexico. In second place right now is Berger, and you can see him, the green car, just coming into our picture now briefly. Senna, of course, driving the John Player. The yellow helmet of this young 26-year-old racing driver, who will not be world champion this year, but I think everyone can forecast with confidence that he will be next year or the year after. Of course, next year he will be upon Honda Power, because that's something that's going to occur. John Bizignano, you've got more followers from the pits.
Yes, I do. It is Johnny Dumfries. Everyone was thinking Senna would come in. Remember, Dumfries had an early pit stop, very early in the race, 12 laps, I think you said it was. Johnny Dumfries, a clear pit stop, out with on his second set of rubber, 3rd set of rubber for this Grand Prix.
Okay, so a little false alarm in the pits there. These black cars come in. It's very difficult to spot as they come along.
Jackie, Keke Rosberg, Alain Prost is slowing, and I think he's pitting. I think it was Rosberg. I'm not sure that the left rear went on properly, but one of the 2 McLarens slowed on the course. They were in this picture right here about 3 corners ago, and now it's missing.
Well, let's wait and see what happens here. It may be Rosberg because he wasn't very happy. Here he comes down. It is Rosberg. Car number 2 a very reduced speed. There's no massive acceleration there. When he went out, I thought that he was revving the engine pretty high. He's got a puncture. His left rear has a puncture. So he's got a flat left rear. That's a problem for him. It's absolutely down as far as it can go. John, you're down in the pit. See, can you see all this?
Well, that left rear definitely has a puncture. The mechanics are throwing their gloves off. They're moving the car into the garage area. We will go down there and try and find out exactly what happened, but that left corner was having problems before it ever went back out of the pit. They were unhappy to let the car back out on the racetrack, and it only did one lap. Back to you, Jack.
Okay, so Nelson Piquet is the man in the center of your picture, and he, of course, is fighting his way back up. Ayrton Senna still leads this Grand Prix. Berger is second, Johansson is third, Piquet is in fourth, but keep in mind they have not been in the pit. So the story here in Mexico City continues. It will be a dramatic race as the race continues. There has even been a suggestion that there may be a sprinkle of as the afternoon progresses. So that could bring another dimension to this. So therefore, I think we're expecting Ayrton Senna to come into the pits. While we're waiting him to go around this racetrack, let me quickly give you the top 10. Senna, Berger, Johansson, Piquet, then Prost, then Warwick, Patrese, Mansell is in 8th position, Alio and Butson with the USF&G Arrow is up to 10th position. They've had a very unhappy weekend at the USF&G team. They've blown 5 of the BMW engines. BMW have had a wretched year of engine reliability, and it has again plagued this team. So it is nice to see Butson up there in 10th position. There's a lot of speculation about whether Butson is going to go to the Benetton team next year. Of course, this is the musical chairs period of Grand Prix racing, where the driver changes are just announced. If Senna is coming into the pit, it will be in a few short seconds from now when he enters this 180-degree turn here, called after Ricardo Roдрiges. Is he coming in? Yes, he is. He's coming into the pit. So here, the John Player Special, the leader, is coming in and should be in sight of John Vivignano in a few short seconds. John, down to you.
Thank you, Jackie. We're waiting for him to come up the pit lane. Again, he's accelerating all the way up the pit lane and trying to get him stopped. He's almost going to go by. No, he does get him stopped. We thought for sure he was going to slide on by, but those brakes did hold. Bob Dance up there in the front telling me to keep those brakes on. Very quick. I think that could have been the quickest pit stop of the weekend. We didn't have a watch down here. Jackie, how did it look up there time-wise?
It surely was. 7.71 seconds has our record for the weekend here. Very slick stop. Only a matter of 1 second faster than, of course, Nelson Piquet. Keep in mind that, of course, you've got to take into account coming into the pit, how fast you go through that tight little S's before you actually come into view in pit lane. That's why the cars are accelerating so quickly. And through our screen, some of our audience may think John's getting a little excited about the speed of approach there. Our camera position is very misleading. Those cars are accelerating up to about 120 to 30 miles an hour in the pit lane. So the concern of the team that he may overshoot is a very real one. We're in Mexico, and we'll be right back.
Aan de pits op dit moment Stefan Johansson, er nog enig overgebleven. Ferrari. En Ayrton Senna hier misschien weer op weg naar Gerhard Berger. Op nieuwe banden. Met achter hem Nelson Piquet. En hier een tweede pitstop dan voor Nigel Mansell.
Mansell, this is his second pit stop for cars that was expected. He's out in 8.29 seconds. A very good pit stop for Nigel Mansell. But of course it puts him further back. Poor boy is going up and down the ladder like a yo-yo.
And he's going 1 lap down. Here comes Senna going by. You can see his teammate Piquet close in the background. On the left is Mansell trying desperately to get up to speed. He is 1 lap down to everybody, and we believe that everybody has made the necessary stop for rubber. That extra stop that Nigel Mansell made, Jackie, I don't see how that could have been strategy. It seems now to have been much too early because he didn't go that far on that set of tires. If it had been a planned stop, I would have expected him to go another 15 laps before coming in again.
No, I'm sure that the reason for his stop was that he had driven so hard and so aggressively to come from 18th position to try and catch the leader that he clearly had to put too much pressure on his tires, and that would not be easy for his tires to live up to. Let's find out if there's more information on that from John Bisignano.
Well, Jackie, we went down to the McLaren pit to try and find out what happened to Keke Rosberg's car. You know that they've been a little bit difficult all year long getting information from, but as near as we can tell, it was only a puncture on that tire. Keke Rosberg got out of his car, threw the gloves all the way across the garage, had a bit of a heated discussion with team manager and owner Ron Dennis, and walked out of the garage area. We could not see any other damage to the car. They could not tell us a thing. We must assume that Keke Rosberg, in his second to the last Grand Prix ever for him, had just a bit too much here in Mexico.
Well, we call it throwing a wobbly. And it seems that Keke did throw a wobbly. Now, there are different colors of wobblies. There's purple wobblies, there's blue wobblies, and there's red wobblies. Easily the worst is a purple wobbly, and I think that might have been it today.
I'll bet his wobbly was a McLaren red wobbly. We're watching the Mexican Grand Prix, but the final Grand Prix of 1986, the one from Australia, will also be on ESPN. We have followed this story all year long, and we will certainly put the final period on the final chapter for the race for this year's championship. That race will be in Adelaide, Australia, where the course is partially run through the city streets and partially through a very scenic park. It's a 2.347-mile course. Ayrton Senna, along with Keke Rosberg, are going to be trying to have great final races. Senna just missing the points championship, and Rosberg looking for his first and only win of 1986.
Well, the race is fast and furious. There is Gerhard Berger. You can see the good television coverage we're getting here from Mexico. And you can see the oil on the front of his helmet. If you see his helmet there is darker over his fancy Benetton colors. As he comes through there, you can see a lot of oil also in the car's helmet of Patrese, who's driving the Brabham. The story also, incidentally, for you aficionados of the sport is that Gordon Murray, the designer of the Brabham team, has taken leave or has left the Brabham team, has gone to the south of France, where he has an old house that he is going to rebuild, and has really dropped out of the motor racing scene at this stage. Whether we'll see him back is another thing, but Gordon Murray, one of the great innovators to Grand Prix racing, had a wretched season with his very low-slung Brabham. Didn't work at all, and frankly, he has chosen to go elsewhere. We are doing the Mexican Grand Prix, and of course, with ESPN, we'll be returning.
De achtervleugel daar steeds klappert. Vooral de achtervleugel, hier achterblijver Christian Danner. Zijn teamgenoot Thierry Bouts hebben al een tijd niet gezien. Daar is hij voorbij, Berger bij Patrese. En zeker zal Christian Danner geen probleem voor hem opleveren. De jonge 27-jarige Oostenrijker Gerhard Berger nu dus op kop in de Grand Prix van Mexico. Nog nooit een overwinning gehad. Zijn eerste Grand Prix was die van Oostenrijk in 1984. En dit is in totaal zijn 34ste Grand Prix. Hier bocht 12 en dan krijgen we dat rechte stuk naar die lange rechterbocht. En hier gaan ze 165 mijl per uur, dat is zo'n 270 kilometer per uur. Het is onvoorstelbaar hoe hard dat gaat in die lange bocht daar op naar het rechte stuk. Belangrijke situatie voor Nigel Mansell hier natuurlijk, dat die Berger op kop rijdt en daarachter Senna zit. Want dat betekent dat zijn grote concurrenten die we hier in beeld zien, Nelson Piquet en Alain Prost, op dit moment niet in een winnende positie rijden en dus niet aan die 9 punten zouden kunnen komen. Daar gaat Alain Prost er voorbij bij Nelson Piquet.
We're back at the Mexican Grand Prix and we've just seen a pass for second place because the situation now is it's a third place pass. Berger is leading, second is Senna, then third has just been taken by Alain Prost over Nelson Piquet. Alain Prost has passed him. Piquet has dropped back considerably even since that pass only one corner ago. Now this could be significant in the race. It's certainly drawing away at great speed from Nelson Piquet. This is a major issue in the World Championship because this could change the complexion of the whole championship if Piquet is in trouble. John Vignano is down in the pits. John, do you have anything for us?
Yes, Jackie, a couple of updates. Number one, the problem of Derek Warwick is out of the race with a misfire. He was coming into the pits. It looked like a routine pit stop, but then all of a sudden the car started misfiring very badly. They took the rear bonnet off. We're going to try and get an interview with Derek Warwick. Also, we had Danner into the pits with the USF&G Arrows. That car made a very quick pit stop. Alan Harrison down there leading the crew. And also his teammate Terry Bousson has come in. Now, I believe all the Goodyear teams have stopped, and now some of the Pirelli boys are beginning to set up. We'll try and get an interview with Derek in a few minutes.
Well, we're back here in the commentary position right now, and it does seem perfectly clear that Alain Prost is driven away with great ease from Nelson Piquet. As he passed the pits on the last lap, Piquet was certainly giving hand signals to his crew. They are not, it seems, in radio contact at the bottom arm, so there could be troubles for Piquet, and he may just be backing off. But certainly the man of the moment, although he's not leading the race, is Alain Prost, because keep in mind, he is still very much in contention for the World Championship and is ahead of both his competitors. Now, Larry Nuber has somebody of interest with us sitting in the box.
Really do, Jackie. I'm very happy to have him up here because of something that happened yesterday. Hubrat Ngata was not able to start this Grand Prix. It's the first one he has missed this year, running for Zach Speed as far as the races he showed up. First of all, your condition is pretty good, eh?
Yeah, it is a pity that I couldn't start the race, but that's it. We didn't have a spare car.
So the one factor that I keep reiterating, because I think it may well rear its head late in this race, is that all of you were so tired after 2 days of practice and qualifications here on this course. The rough surface really took its toll on drivers.
It is. The track itself is very, very bumpy. I mean, or even on the main straight, you really have to keep the steering wheel very tight in your hand. Through the corner, it's very bumpy. And not only that, even when you are off ideal line, you get immediately in trouble. I mean, you could see it when you are overlapping back markers. And people have to be very careful. You could see it when the tire's still a little bit cold. And not only that, we are about 2,200 meters above sea level, so that makes it not much easier life for the drivers. And beside that, I saw quite a lot of drivers having their helmet cool to keep their head cool.
Well, one more question, but just for a second, I'll take time out and Jackie talk a little bit about this battle because it means so very much. We're talking about two men going after each other. We're talking about the importance of points. The point here is that Mansell is about a lap behind Piquet. Did he just get unlap himself?
Yes, Nigel Mansell has unlapped himself from Nelson Piquet, so that would certainly tell me that Piquet has a problem. And in fact, Piquet is coming into the pits. Now, this will be the second pit stop for Nelson Piquet, and it will be important for us to cover what is wrong here. So, John Bisignano, he will be coming into the picture in just a moment. He is behind another car, which is holding him up, but can you see him?
I can certainly see him. He's coming right across our vision here. We have him actually in fourth place right now, so the crew is under even extra pressure. Let's see, everything looks to be going very regularly. They're throwing those tires back, up and down. Nelson puts it in gear, accelerating up to 100 miles an hour in only 6 seconds, down that long straightaway. Also, out of the pit, Nini in the Minardi. He was not as quick as the Williams pit stop, but will be joining the race behind him.
Well, just a little more than 8 seconds for that pit stop, which is consistent to his first pit stop. But certainly something was wrong for him. So I think the answer is that Nelson Piquet had a handling problem. He thinks it's tires, he hopes it's tires, But as we look at Gerhard Berger, let's go back down to John Bisignano in the pit.
I'm with Derek Warren, the Olivetti Brabham. Derek, what was the reason for your retirement from the Mexican Grand Prix?
It seems that a plug fouled and put a hole through the piston. It went on to 3 cylinders.
Now, most of the Goodyear people have been in. You're one of the Pirelli shod teams. How are the Pirellis holding up out there?
Well, we knew we'd have a problem in the first 5 to 10 laps, and then we knew we'd be good. We were lapping high 21s all the time, and the tires were fantastic. As you can see with Berger's leading the race on Pirelli.
Do you think he'll have to stop, or can he go the distance?
I think he can go the distance. I could have done for sure.
Well, that will be a heck of an advantage. Now, you're considered one of the most fit drivers in Formula One, and everyone's saying this is such a tough circuit. How tough is it for you in these opening laps or half distance you win?
I felt very good. You know, I had water bottle on the car and had some ventilation put in, but I felt very good. But you did tend to lack air. You know, with this altitude, it's such a problem, but it was okay.
Best of luck in Australia in 2 weeks.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Best of luck in Australia the 2 weeks from today.
Thank you very much indeed.
Well, that was Derek Warwick, who, of course, is out of this race. The leader we still have is Gerhard Berger. Ayrton Senna is lying in second place and has just been passed, it would seem, by Alain Prost. Has he made it? The good Alain Prost into second place as Ayrton Senna ducks into the pit, so John Bisignano better get on his high stool again. But this puts Prost, a man who's seriously in contention here for the World Championship, into second place as he comes into the pit. John.
That'll be right in front of us, Jackie. And of course, these John players, mechanics are absolutely professional. Of course, you have the one American on the team there on the left right. It's a very, very smooth, very, very controlled stop. I think it was maybe one of the quickest. Just very quickly, what Derek Warwick was saying about the breathing. The drivers were having problems breathing on this circuit, and the altitude wasn't helping. They were trying to figure out how to remind themselves to breathe, and finally someone came up with the suggestion to blow out. And by blowing out, you have to cause the reaction to suck the air back in. And that was what the team manager's final instructions were to each driver on the grid, was to make sure that they have enough air going down these long straightaways and through the corners.
Okay, well, certainly Ayrton Senna got a breather while he was in the pits there. You don't get much time to breathe. The pulse rate would certainly be up around about 180, I would suggest. We got on the very fast corners. When I was racing, I would get up to 200, which sounds ridiculous, but it was electronically monitored, and certainly the pulse rate was terribly high. So with the altitude here, the effort going into it from a driver's point of view is something quite serious. There was some speculation at the beginning of the race that some of the drivers were taking oxygen, and it was being looked at by the officials whether this was a safe thing to do. My medical advice was that it was in fact okay for them, but it would be a very, very short benefit.
Well, Hoop Rodengather is still with us, and Hoop, before we heard the comment from Derek, you had suggested to Jackie and me, so you had at first that you thought the Pirellis could go the distance. Now, is this something that you had picked up along the pit lane before the race began?
No, because I know that Pirelli specialized themselves a little bit in this to make a race tire which will last the whole race. And secondly, when you were watching the race in the beginning, I think Berger drove a very technical race by leave the fight to struggle over to the first three and stay in fourth position and keep your tires in a good shape. And I think he's getting now a return for money.
He's your pick to win this one then, right?
I think there's a very good chance that he can do the whole race on one set of tires, so he don't have to come in the pit tonight. I think it will be very difficult for the other competitors to pick up all the time he's now in front of them.
Hoop, thank you very much. We're very happy to see that you're okay. Good luck from here, okay? Thanks, Hoop.
Okay, we do have Berger still leading, but Alain Prost is certainly going to give him a lot of pressure. The World Championship point standings, incidentally, if the race were to finish right now, and we promised we'd keep giving you this information, Nigel Mansell would continue to lead with 70 points, Alain Prost would come up with 65 points, and Nelson Piquet would be third with only 63 points. That gives only a 7-spread point basis on the World Championship. But keep in mind, we've still got a bit of racing still to do, and we'll be right back after this.
Senna. Overigens opvallend dat die Minardis nog rondgaan. Die nog nooit eerder een Grand Prix uitreden dit seizoen. Het zou leuk zijn voor het team als in die voorlaatste Grand Prix eindelijk eens een keer in ieder geval in de uitslag voorkwamen. Stefan Johansson die dus uit de Ferrari stapt ten favore van Gerhard Berger. En er is een sterk gerucht gaande dat deze Johansson de plaats in zou gaan nemen van Keke Rosberg, die zoals u weet uit de McLaren stapt aan het einde van het seizoen en ook uit zijn actieve racecarrière. En wat gaat die Minardi goed ten opzichte van de Ferrari? Daar ziet u het kleine verschil tussen Stefan Johansson, die er nu voorbij gaat bij André de Cesaris, en Ayrton Senna. Goeie beurt van Stefan Johansson. In ieder geval zeker zijn plaats moet weggeven in de Ferrari, maar nog niet zeker is van een nieuwe plaats bij een ander team. Want geruchten zijn maar geruchten. Zoals er dus nu rondgereden wordt en er zou nu een finish komen, dan behoudt Nigel Mansell zo'n 70 punten. En dat is begrijpelijk, maar er komt dan een nieuwe situatie, want tweede wordt dan Alain Prost met 64 en Nelson Piquet met 62. Dat houdt nog steeds voor alle rijders de mogelijkheid open om wereldkampioen te worden. En dat is niet waar wat ik daar zeg. Want Prost die kan maximaal 8 punten maar scoren in Australië, omdat hij 1 aftrekpunt dan nog heeft. Dus dan zouden Mansell en Prost gelijk komen. Maar dan moet Prost winnen in Australië en mag Mansell niet scoren. Nou. Het wordt ingewikkeld. Maar het ziet er naar uit dat de beslissing wordt uitgesteld naar Australië. En ik denk dat deze man, Nigel Mansell, zich daar volledig van bewust is. Mochten ze overigens gelijk komen aan het einde in Australië, dan telt het aantal overwinningen. En daarin is op dit moment Nigel Mansell de koning. Want die heeft er 5 op zijn naam staan al dit seizoen. Hij won in België, hij won in Canada, hij won in Frankrijk, hij won in Engeland. Die belangrijke Grand Prix van Brands Hatch, waar hij de leiding nam ook in het kampioenschap. En hij won ook 14 dagen geleden in Portugal. Alain Prost die heeft pas 3 overwinningen op zijn naam staan. Williams dat dit seizoen natuurlijk fantastisch gaat. Met een hele rij overwinningen. Op dit moment 9 overwinningen. 5 voor Mansell en 4 voor Piquet. Is daardoor ook al wereldkampioen geworden. Waar het gaat om de constructeurs. Met 117 punten plus het resultaat van Portugal. Daar kwamen er nog eens 15 bij. Nee, er kwamen er 13 bij. Dus ze hebben 130 punten. En ze hebben er dan nog 15 te gaan. Met deze race en die van Australië. Om het record van McLaren te verbreken. Want die hebben dat in handen met 145 punten in dat constructeurskampioenschap. Snelste ronde op dit moment in handen van Nigel Mansell, bijzonder opvallend. 1:20:21. 52 ronden verreden en nog 16 te gaan. Daar zien we Gerhard Berger, de leider. achter Nelson Piquet. Nelson Piquet die op een ronde wordt gezet. Nou, wat gaat die Berger ontzettend goed. Wat rijdt hij in scherpe lijnen. En wat rijdt hij ook spectaculair. En dan gaat hij weer aan de pits, Nelson Piquet. Nou.
In some troubled days it is for the Williams Honda team because Nelson Piquet is pulling into the pits. John Bisignano is down there. Are you with us, John?
Again, we're set up right across from the Williams team. These boys have to be tired. Their third stop, they get absolutely correct there. A very quick one. He seems a little bit slow in his acceleration out of the pit lane. He was in 5th place, but he did take it slow going out. Jackie, I have an observation for you that several people are making down here. Now, the Austrian driver currently leading this race has not stopped for tires. Next year, the normally aspirated cars will not be stopping. They can go the distance without a tire pit stop. The leader has over 30 seconds and has just lapped the 5th place car. What advantage do you think that will give the normally aspirated cars next season not to be able to have to stop?
Jackie, he wasn't out that long, but when he came in, I'm sure the right front was blistered.
Well, I think the answer to your question, first of all, is I think they will be competitive next year with normally aspirated cars, but that's another story right now. Just an update as we go here. After 52 laps, the top standings are Berger is leading, Prost is second, Senna is third, Johansson is fourth, Piquet was fifth, but of course no longer stands in that position, so Patricio will be fifth, then Alio comes up after that, then Nigel Mansell's got himself into 7th position now, then Alio, then Jonathan Palmer, down to De Cesaris, Bunsen, Arno, Dumfries, Brundle, Danner, Nannini and Berg. Now, the cars out of the race, Ginzani, Tambi, Alboreto, Streff, Fabi, Warwick and Rosberg. No accidents so far, all drivers in good condition, so it's been a safe Grand Prix of Mexico this far.
This Thursday, October 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, you'll see live college football here on ESPN. Murray State versus the University of Akron. And of course, the University of Akron is getting attention like it's never had before in its history because head coach Jerry Faust has moved over from Notre Dame to Akron. Jerry originally coached at the almost immortal high school, Cincinnati Moeller High School. Moved over to Notre Dame University before going to Akron this year and is trying to pump some new life into that program. And what added attraction to this broadcast, we will be live in the locker room with Coach Faust.
Well, Akron's under a little bit of pressure right now because Berg is actually running in Pirelli tires. And of course, Goodyear comes from Akron. Goodyear have won every Grand Prix this year so far, so there'll be a few people paying attention to this in Akron as well as, of course, down in the pits itself. We're at the Mexican Grand Prix, and we'll be right back.
Het gat tussen Senna en Prost om die tweede positie is 30 seconden. En dat is vrijwel onoverbrugbaar geworden. Daar zien wij ook Alain Prost op weg naar Nelson Piquet om hem te lappen. Daartussenin zit nog Johnny Dumfries. En hier dan de leider Gerhard Berger, die zo'n 44 seconden voorsprong heeft op Alain Prost. Prost die overigens op dit moment per ronde zo'n halve seconde inloopt. En dat is natuurlijk niet genoeg om dat gat nog dicht te maken. U ziet, het verschil is 33 seconden geworden. Met nog 12 ronden te gaan nu moet Prost daar toch heel wat aan doen. En het ziet er vrijwel onmogelijk uit. Als Berger heel blijft, gaat hij zijn eerste Grand Prix overwinning halen in zijn carrière. Berger die alle ruimte krijgt. En laten we hopen, zeker voor de spanning van het kampioenschap, dat hij die koppositie in handen houdt. En dat hij gaat winnen. Want het zou alleen maar leuk zijn. Daar staat Johnny Dumfries aan de kant van de baan. Voor hem is het over. Het zal overigens niet zo zijn dat Johnny Dumfries de enige blijft, want het wordt moeilijker en moeilijker voor de motoren om het vol te houden onder deze hoge temperaturen met de ijle lucht. ...57 ronden gereden voor Gerhard Berger. En hier Prost, de man op de tweede positie. En daar is Nigel Mansell bezig om die lap niet te doen, maar krijgt geen ruimte van Alain Prost. Nigel, die nog steeds de snelste is, de snelste ronde op naam heeft staan, probeert er langs te komen bij Alain Prost.
56 laps has been completed of this 69-lap race, but it's actually a 68 racing lap race.
Jackie, the points battle is on the screen in front of us right now, but with some strange configurations. That's Piquet going by. He is slipping backwards or so it seems. Prost is running this race second place right now in this race. And Nigel Mansell is right behind him. Mansell may be the quickest running of that trio, but Mansell is a lap behind to the leader, and right now is showing in seventh. If he can pass his teammate Piquet, he picks up that all-important points position. Boy, this is interesting, but at the same time confusing.
Now, what you're saying is, if Nelson Piquet drops one place back below sixth position, if he goes out of the World Championship points, he is therefore out of the World Championship on the basis of being able to win it this year of 86, which leaves the World Championship in contention only to Nigel Mansell and Alain Prost.
Exactly. He came in with a 10-point deficit, that is, Piquet did, to his teammate Nigel Mansell. And if he can outpoint his teammate, in other words, if both of them get no points, or Nigel gets one and Nelson gets none, there is no way that Nelson Piquet can be the 1986 champion.
So the championship is in fact in the picture where we see not those two men, because the man we see in the green and white car there driving the Benetton, of course, is Berger, who in fact is leading the race, a little ignored by others at the present time, because, and Alio drives slowly past, incidentally, our commentary position is not a major issue. He spun coming out of this very fast 180-degree 130-mile-an-hour corner. The normal exit speed is more than 180 miles an hour. To have a wee spin at that speed will certainly get the blood pressure up a bit.
Only you, as a three-time champion, can call a spin like that wee, Jackie. And by the way, just a word about the crowd here. The estimate was 50,000 people. The ticket prices were elevated significantly, that is, in terms of the current economy, for this race here in 1986 than what they were the last time that the Formula One cars performed here back in, what was that, 1970, Jackie, was the last time they were here? And as you recall, and Jackie has mentioned before, that there was a real security problem when they raced it before. Not so this year. And as a matter of fact, it's been a pretty pleasant weekend. The only negative on the whole weekend was the track was too rough. But as far as hospitality and the aura that's around here, the excitement around the race, high marks.
Okay, with 10 laps to go and this man in the lead, let's go back down to the pits.
Thank you, Jackie. We just want to give you a quick update. Number one, Gonzalez in the Osella, who came out of the race in the first 8 or 7 laps or so, is going back out onto the track. You have to give their crew a little bit of credit for persevering through that mechanical situation with that particular car. Also, we have been down to the Berger pits, the Benetton pits, and they have confirmed that they are planning to let the car go the rest of the distance without a planned pit stop. Back to you.
Well, that'll be something. Gerhard Berger driving his second last race probably for the Benetton team. Of course, he's going to Ferrari. And there's only one more race left after this, and that'll be the Australian Grand Prix. Benetton being in the pole position a couple of times this year. Babby and Berger have been competitive. Pirelli have not won a single race this year and have announced their retirement from the sport. It could easily be that this could bring them back into racing. And right now you are seeing another battle, because the black and yellow car there, with the yellow helmet rather, is under pressure from Stefan Johansson. So Ayrton Senna, who's in third position right now, is really under pressure from Johansson. So we could see the whole leaderboard changing here. I don't see Prost catching Berger unless something strange happens. So we certainly have a good race to the end here, and we'll be back.
Als we het nog één seizoen uitzingen met de beperkte turbodruk. Het is allemaal volledig open voor volgend seizoen. Maar de grote blijft...
The Mexican Grand Prix. Certainly the Grand Prix has shown us a lot of pit business. There's been a lot happening down there. And of course, right now we're looking at a battle for third and fourth position between Johansson, who's trying to get up and pass Senna. Senna, who was in pole position for this Grand Prix, lying in third place right now behind Gerhard Berger and Alain Prost. So the World Championship is now going to be contested in Australia between Alain Prost and Nigel Mansell. However, Piquet is still holding on to that sixth position, so the speculation that we were giving you earlier is still in play, with a matter of only 8 laps to go.
And also keep in mind, Jackie, the sixth place will not do it for Piquet. Sixth place is worth only 1 point. That puts him 9 behind Nigel, so that gives him a tie. But there's a real complicated scenario that if they tie in points, you go down to the best finishes. And because Nelson has won, or rather Nigel has won more races this year, he would become the champion on the basis of the number of wins that he has had. It's a very complicated formula, but Piquet would really be at a deficit if he got 1 or no points here.
Keep in mind we've still got a few laps to go, and Grand Prix racing this year of '86 has shown right to the line that there has been the possibility of changes in the leading group. So this race is not over, and it never is until the checkered flag goes down. So this World Championship certainly is on the bubble. And look at this. Nigel Mansell has now posted the fastest lap at 1:19, which is an average speed of more than 123 miles an hour. That just shows you the spirit has not gone out of Mansell.
Jackie, something that we have overlooked, it just hit me. Nigel Mansell has reached the maximum number of finishes that are allowed to be counted into the standing. Nigel Mansell will get no points for a 6th or a 5th. He has to finish 4th or better in this race to get any points at all. So that's the other part of the scenario that Mansell has to be aware of, that a 6th or 5th will do him no good.
Well, let's wait and see what happens, because he's keeping someone else out of a 5th or a 6th place, which is important. John Bisignano is in the pit.
Jack, I just want to let you know that the last time when Berger came by our position here, his engine sounded very, very bad. It was totally off song. We don't know if he was just backing off to try and save some fuel or what, but he was definitely off song. See if you can pick it up the next time he comes by. Back to you, Jackie.
Okay, John, now that could say one of two things. As you say, it could be fuel, actually, because with that long right hand or that 180-degree turn, a lot of the fuel would be getting pushed to one side of the fuel tank, and it can often be that the fuel pickup point could be getting starvation. So it could be that. That's one thing, because fuel consumption is a serious threat here, and we only have 7 laps to go. Second thing is it could be a broken exhaust, which quite often in a very rough track like this will clearly make a difference in sound. The BMW engine this year has not been very reliable, so it could also be something that we're only speculating on at this time. But let's keep our fingers crossed. Let's keep an eye on what's happening to him. But the race right now is certainly between those fellas there. Berger, Prost, Senna, Johansson, Patrese, Piquet, Mansell, Alio. That takes us up to 8th and 9th position as the good Dr. Jonathan Palmer. I like to see that because he's a nice driver and he's never had that chance to get up there. And filling the 10th position is Terry Boutsen in the USA 7G car. So we'll be right back after this.
Für die letzten 5 Runden im Grand Prix von Mexiko.
looking at a car doing 180 miles an hour right at that spot. Doesn't look like it through a long lens, but look at Senna looking in his mirror, paying great attention. There's a lot of attention being paid to those two cars. That's Nelson Piquet ahead of his teammate, and Mansell has just done another fastest lap, 123 plus miles an hour average, so Piquet must be keeping the pressure on. This is the World Championship you're looking at, and both of those drivers, although they're teammates, there's a great deal of, let's say, speculation within the team who would let anyone through if it came to push and shove.
Jackie, at this point, do you suppose that both of them are aware that if Mansell gets by, Piquet is eliminated, or is it just too complex and too confusing to know at this point in the race from the cockpit?
I think it's too confusing for them. I think they've got their mind locked firmly into the driving on hand, and I really don't think they're interested at all. They're purely driving this race. I'm sure they know they're one lap down, because they're a lap behind the leader. There's in fact only 4 people on the same lap, and Berger, of course, is the man who's leading that in this Benetton team. They've really come a long way, this team, under the direction of Peter Collins, who was at one time with the Williams team. He set another lap record, got up to 124 miles an hour, has Nigel Mansell, but he didn't gain anything on Piquet, so Piquet must be lapping and circulating at the same speed.
Jack, go ahead, Jack.
I was just complimenting this Benetton team. If they do win this race, it will be a climax for them of a tremendous season. They haven't actually announced that they've got an engine for 1987. There's a lot of speculation whose engine they may be using, but as of now, they officially do not have an engine.
Oh, your race was slow.
Stefan Johansson has blown what looks to be a turbo from what looks like being potentially a third-place finish. The car has caught fire at the rear end, so it is a turbo that has blown. And there's only 3 laps to go. He pulled off. How disappointing for him. The fire marshals are on the spot. Stefan removes his steering wheel, steps out, gives his overalls a bit of a dust off. And that must be very you could see the deep breath going out of him there.
He really contributed that, Jackie. He looked for marshals, and he drove to them. He really helped the situation out. A really wise effort and move there on behalf of Stefan after a great drive.
He's a very dejected young man right now. Look at him. This, of course, is the second last race he will have for Ferrari. He will only have one more race left, which will be Australia. He has been dropped from that team in favor of... and look, there's another spin-off. We've got a spin-off. We've got Patrese off the racetrack. That's a bad situation for him because Patrese was in 5th. Now that changes the World Championship again.
Dramatically.
And there's Patrese coming out, that water bottle that he's got round his neck there. The winner cruises on with yellow flags in 2 different parts of the racetrack.
What a effect that has on the World Championship point standings, Jackie. Suddenly, both Piquet and Mansell are in the points.
Well, we've got some experts in the pit here working on that very information, so we will give you an update what the situation is. In the meantime, let's go down to John Bisignano with only 3 laps left.
Thank you, Jackie. We went down to the Benetton pit to find out what that misfire was a few laps ago because Berger's certainly running clear now. They thought that he was just slow shifting and backing off at that one particular point to try and conserve some fuel. As you say, the points are being all scrambled up here because of these last 2 retirements in the top 6. My question is, Prost was going to score 6 points if he held on to 2nd place, but now everyone else is moving up the scale. It's Prost that I think is being most affected by this in the World Championship standings.
Well, as you saw there, a very dejected Riccardo Patrese had got out of the car, was really showing a little bit of Italian disappointment there, as the Benetton, with only 2 laps to go, with the BMW engine on board, he's running on Pirelli tires, he's got an Austrian driver, and of course he's got the multicolours of Benetton. They say on their billboards, and certainly they have all the nations painted on there.
Jackie, I'd like to make one comment. We're going to step aside from the race for just a couple of seconds here because I know all Americans are aware that Jose Ligarza lives here in Mexico City. We have spent much of the weekend with Jose. He has been kind enough to be our unofficial host. He is recuperating, and the news is, by the way, he will go to Phoenix next week to try. That has not been released yet. This is the first time that has been announced publicly. It is not for sure that he will race, but if he can, he will. 1 lap to go, Jackie.
Well, with only 1 lap to go, Berger has only got Really about 3 miles of asphalt to cover, less than that right now. And there he is, Gerhard Berger, never having won a Grand Prix before. And the World Championship standings are truly remarkable. Let me just talk about this quickly. Mansell would have 72 points if it stayed the way it was just now. Prost 65 and Piquet 63. So by Jove, will it be something in Adelaide. And there's the young man driving round now, praying and hoping that everything's going to stay in shape. Under the yellow flag, no passing allowed because of the incident on the outside of the track there, which was Johansson's.
Jackie, can you remember the emotions inside the helmet for your first ever Formula One win?
Ooh la la, I certainly can, and it certainly was an emotional experience, and it took me a couple of days to come down from that one. And I think it will also be for Gerhard. A tremendously good thing for him. Of course, the first Austrian driver to come along since Niki Lauda. Before that, Jochen Rindt. Austria has produced some great talent. And it's a great credit to this team also that they've been able to put this wonderful car together. And this is the final corner. We're looking for the checkered flag. He is coming round. The checkered flag has been rolled, and look at his hand in the air. And that is an amazing performance. There you see it, and look at the Benetton team here. Luciano Benetton himself is at this race. In fact, I was going to identify him for you there. He was standing up above his mechanics. So there the others cross the finishing line. And that indeed is something spectacular, and what an end to a race this has produced. There he is, and he's pulling down lap. The United Colours of Benetton certainly have brought themselves in front of 43 different countries who are picking up satellite television of this event. And we are now going to give you the order of finish, which we are just about to give you. We want to be absolutely certain of it because, of course, the championship points are very much at stake.
Gerhard Berger, who has had the fastest lap in the race on 2 occasions this year. There have been many times when this car has shown the fastest straightaway speed. All season long, Gerhard Berger has been certainly one of the drivers that the Formula One fraternity has been looking at carefully. He has shown tremendous improvement, and it did seem like it was only a matter of time before he'd win a race. And how appropriate it is, he gets one for Benetton. This is the old Tolman team. The Tolman cars have finally won a race. In a matter of speaking, a great moment for this man who is going to move on in 2 weeks to Ferrari.
And here you see the order of finish in the championship points. Gerhard Berger of Austria. Alain Prost finishes second. Ayrton Senna of Brazil finishes third. Nelson Piquet of Brazil also finishes in fourth. Nigel Mansell finishes fifth. And sixth is Alliot from France. And there you see the World Championship point standing, which is in fact something slightly different from what we have. But they are giving it just now, the Mexicans on television, saying that Nigel Mansell now has 70 points because he may have had to drop 2 of them, which of course is something that you would have to have a computer to work out right now, but it's the number of finishes per year.
Jackie, Nigel needed a 4th or better to get points coming into this race, so I do believe at this point that is correct.
Well, we'll be back to give you the official World Championship point standings in just a moment. This is ESPN at the Grand Prix of Mexico.
Vai buscar 59,6, 65, mas terá que deitar fora um ponto do 6º lugar, o que significa 64 pontos, e desta forma afastado de poder ser campeão mundial. Ayrton Senna vai buscar mais 4 pontos e passa para 55, e depois aparecem Rosberg com 22, Johansson com 19 e Gerhard Berger com 17. E agora é a boleia que Nelson Piquet vai dar a 3 dos seus colegas. Um é Johansson do lado esquerdo e os 2 pilotos da Ligier Gitan do lado direito, ou seja, o René Arnoux e o Philippe Alliot. Piquet, que continua ainda em luta pelo título em Adelaide, 63 pontos, 70 para Nigel Mansell, que apesar do seu 2º lugar aqui, não veio ganhar nada. De novo, a classificação final deste Grande Prémio do México. Berger na Benetton BMW Em segundo, Alan Prost com o McLaren. Em terceiro, aparece Senna com o Lotus Renault. Quarto, Piquet com o Williams Honda a uma volta. Quinto, Mansell também com o Williams Honda a uma volta. Sexto, Philippe Alliot com o Ligier Renault. Em sétimo lugar, Thierry Boutsen. Em oitavo, Andrea de Cesaris. E em nono, Christian Danner. Este já a 2 voltas. 10º lugar para Palmer, 11º para Martin Brundle. Só 11 chegaram ao final deste grande prémio. Martin Brundle temos do lado esquerdo, bancadas cheias aqui na cidade do México. Vamos todos para Adelaide ainda com o campeonato por decidir. Mas as possibilidades de Nelson Piquet são menores agora em relação àquelas que tinha aqui na cidade do México. Ele é obrigado a vencer com os seus 63 pontos. Ele é obrigado a vencer em Adelaide e Nigel Mansell em Adelaide teria que deitar fora 3 pontos, portanto, se subir ao pódio, matematicamente, ele é também o campeão mundial. Agora aqui Ricardo Patrese, que ocupava a 4ª posição, ele estava atrás de Ayrton Senna quando o motor de Stefan Johansson, que disputava a 3ª posição com Senna, partiu. Portanto, tudo adiado para Adelaide. Dentro de 15 dias será o Grande Prémio da Austrália na cidade de Adelaide. É um circuito de rua onde no ano passado os jovens que mais se evidenciaram foram Ayrton Senna e foram também o Nigel Mansell e o Keke Rosberg. E não esqueçamos que os Williams Honda irão andar muito bem em Adelaide. Nelson Piquet terá, portanto, que ganhar em Adelaide. O carro para ganhar ele tem. Vamos ver se em Adelaide iremos festejar ou o tricampeonato de Nelson Piquet ou o primeiro campeonato de Nigel Mansell. Digamos que agora saem Senna e Prost do carro que os levou até junto do pódio. Aparecerá também Gerhard Berger, ali está, apareceu ligeiramente atrás. Dizíamos que em Adelaide iremos festejar ou o tricampeonato de Piquet ou o primeiro campeonato de Nigel Mansell. Gerhard Berger, o vencedor, meio cansado. Bem, também não era para esperar outra coisa. Na frente está Jean-Marie Balestre, sempre na fotografia. Gerhard Berger ali está, cansado, encosta-se um pouco. Reparem como realmente 68 voltas marcam um piloto. Aí Ayrton Senna perguntou se estava tudo bem, ele abanou a cabeça dizendo que sim. Alan Prost do lado direito acabou aqui o seu campeonato do mundo de 1986, não tem nada para dizer agora é na Austrália. Lá atrás Senna e Berger conversam, possivelmente Gerhard Berger a dizer que corrida extraordinária, ganhar aqui no México, está verdadeiramente exausto, como diz, está encostado. 2.200 metros de altitude não é fácil, não é fácil. Até sem fazer nada, as pessoas se cansam quanto mais andando de carro, a estas velocidades e com este esforço físico. Gerhard Berger, Benetton BMW, a vitória quase pede desculpa, não é? Ele quando os olhos eu não tinha nada a ver com isso, a corrida não era minha, mas olha, não chegou ninguém na minha frente, portanto ganhei. Gerhard Berger, o vencedor, Alan Prost, segundo classificado, Ayrton Senna, terceiro classificado. Este é o pódio, a vitória deste simpático austríaco. Vamos repetir os seus dados. 27 anos de idade, nasceu em 27 de agosto de 59. É austríaco, vive em Wörgl, perto de Innsbruck, na Áustria. É solteiro, disputou aqui o seu 35º Grande Prémio, foi a sua primeira vitória. O seu primeiro Grande Prémio foi há 2 anos na Áustria, o Grande Prémio do seu país ao volante do ATS de Günther Schmidt. O seu melhor resultado até hoje
has been a Grand-Prix of first. First of all, we have Berger, his first win, the first win for the Benetton team. Pirelli, their first win this year, but of course they won a couple years ago with PK. Their second victory in modern Grand Prix racing. First win for BMW this year, of course, because the Olivetti team has not been doing all that well for them. Also the first for Alio, that beautiful spin right in front of his entire crew. here up the front straight, and he held on to get 6th place, his first point ever in Formula One.
Okay, John, well, let's just run through the top 10 finishes here. Berger, the man who's standing right now on the podium, he looks terribly tired. The national anthems are being played. The man to your left of the picture is Alain Prost of France. To the right, Ayrton Senna, standing behind Monsieur Balest, who's almost blocking him from view. And then Nelson Piquet of Brazil was 4th. Nigel Mansell was 5th. Alio was 6th. Terry Boutsen and the US F&G Arrows finished 7th. The Cesares has been 8th. Christian Danner finished 9th. And the good Dr. Jonathan Palmer finished in the top 10. He has done well this year. Zach Speed, a great result for them. And a great finish for the men that you see right up there.
Jackie, a little bit about the points. Our Mexican friends misled us just a bit. Here is the definitive word. Nigel Mansell, in finishing in 5th position, gets no points as Gerhard Berger lifts the victory cup aloft. He needed a 4th or better, so he stays at 70. 2nd place in the points becomes Alain Prost. He needed to finish 5th or better to get any points. He did. He got 2nd. That's worth 6 points. Added to his previous 59, and now 65. Nelson Piquet, anything that he scored counted. He does not have enough finishes yet. Piquet finished 4th and moves him up to 63 points. So going into Adelaide, the top 3 with 7 points is anybody's championship.
Well, you're seeing fun and games right now with big bottles of Goethe Chateau Champagne. Peter Collins, the team manager up there, Nana Benetton up there. And Berger, of course, is not all that experienced at shaking that champagne, because this is the first time for him as a winner. But Prost surely is getting a hard time. There's a jubilant group. If you talk about fatigue and tiredness and everything else worrying these drivers, adrenaline does work. It does for us too. And look at that, a great hug and great affection being shown. You are seeing the spirit of Grand Prix racing at its very best, and we're coming back.
Bereits für eine große Formel 1-Karriere zu dienen. Es war das beste Auto, das ich in diesem Jahr bekommen konnte. Und dafür sage ich euch allen, hat Gerhard Berger zu seinen Benetton-Teamleuten gesagt, noch einmal Dankeschön. Liebe Zuschauer, das war für heute aus Mexico City. Auch ich danke fürs Zuschauen und auf Wiedersehen.
Vamos a continuar con la programación del Gran Premio de México. Vamos a pedirles a todas las personas que están en la zona de pozos tengan la bondad de pasar a sus lugares.
A transmissão direta e integral do Grande Prémio do México. Boa noite, até amanhã.
Manteniendo posiblemente abierta la presión de turbocargador a determinada presión, no gastó tanto combustible y pudo así, pues ganar el Gran Premio que terminar en primer lugar. Alain Prost entró a la zona de pozos.
The Grand Prix has finished. The winner, Gerhard Berger of Austria. Alain Prost was 2nd. Ayrton Senna was 3rd. Nelson Piquet 4th. Nigel Mansell 5th. Alliot was 6th from France. Boutsen 7th. De Cesares was 8th. Danner 9th. Palmer 10th. Brundle, Johansson, Patrese, although he didn't finish the race, Nannini, Arnold, and Berg. So that's the end of this Grand Prix. We're now looking forward to the next one, which of course is in Australia. That will be the clincher for the World Championship. ESPN will be there, of course. So let's all get together for that. This Mexican Grand Prix has been brought to you by BS Goodrich, PA Radios, built for you to take on the road, and by Budweiser, Deepwood Age for that clean, crisp taste. This bunch for you. Goodbye from Mexico.
Made at least one, except Berger, who had made none at all. What was he putting in the rubber?
I put on the left side hard tires and the right side soft tires. And I wasn't sure, but after half distance I feel the tires feels right, so I was trying to do all the race without pit stop.
It was Berger's turn to feel the heady delights of champagne-soaked overalls. Mansell had fought back hard for his 2 points, but would have to discard them. Prost would keep his 6 points and thus be in striking distance of Mansell for the championship, with one race to go.